Welcome back, everyone, to the Deep Dive. You know, where we love to just take a deep dive into all sorts of fascinating topics. And today, we're going to be taking a plunge into the world of the Enneagram. Specifically, we're going to be looking at Type 3, the Achiever.
Oh, the achiever.
Yeah, we've got some great material from Personality NFT to guide us. So
Okay, great.
let's get started.
Yeah. So for those who may not know, the Enneagram, it's a system of personality typing. It helps us understand the different ways that people, well, see the world and how they experience their emotions.
Okay, I love that. So it's kind of like a decoder ring for understanding ourselves and others.
Exactly.
So let's crack the code on this Achiever personality. What makes them tick?
Well, at their core, type threes, they really crave feeling valuable and worthy.
Mm-hmm.
And they often seek that validation through, achievements and recognition.
So it's not just about like hitting goals for the sake of it. It's about proving their worth to the world and maybe even to themselves.
That's a great way to put it, yeah.
Like I immediately think of someone like Oprah, right?
Oh, yeah, classic type three.
I mean, her ambition is incredible. She's achieved so much in so many different areas.
Absolutely.
But I'm guessing there's also a flip side to that intense drive, right? There's got to be some pressure that comes with it.
Definitely. You hit the nail on the head. This need for validation, it can come from a deep-seated fear of failure and worthlessness.
So it's like they're constantly trying to prove themselves, avoid being seen as a failure.
Yeah, exactly. It's a double-edged sword, right?
Yeah.
On the one hand, you have this incredible drive and ambition, but then on the other, there's that underlying fear that can sometimes, hold them back.
It can be kind of paralyzing, I imagine.
Yeah.
Now, the material we have from Personality NFT, it mentions some key traits of the achiever. They're often ambitious, goal-oriented, and super charismatic, right?
Oh, yeah. Type threes, they definitely know how to make an entrance. But, it's interesting because those characteristics, they can be both strengths and weaknesses,
Yeah.
I mean, ambition can fuel great achievements, but it can also lead to, workaholism or neglecting personal relationships.
It's like they're so focused on getting to the finish line that they forget to enjoy the journey itself.
Right, exactly.
And then the charisma.
Yeah.
It can be magnetic, but is it always genuine?
That's a great question. I mean, type threes are often naturally charming and engaging.
Mm-hmm.
They know how to present themselves well, but, everyone has layers.
Right.
And for the achiever, there might be some deeper insecurities hiding beneath that confident exterior.
So how can we tell if someone is genuinely confident or just projecting an image?
I think it's about looking beyond the surface. Are they comfortable with vulnerability?
Mm-hmm.
Are they open to feedback? Do they value genuine connections over superficial approval? These are all things to consider.
Okay, that makes sense. Now, Personality NFT also mentions something called wings when it comes to Enneagram types. What exactly are those?
So wings are basically influences from the neighboring types on the Enneagram. They add some extra flavor, some nuance to each type.
Oh, I like that. Extra flavor.
Right. And for type threes, the wings are type 2, the helper, and type 4, the individualist.
So let me see if I understand. You could have a type 3 with a 2 wing who might be, say, really focused on helping others achieve their goals, while a type 3 with a 4 wing might be more drawn to, I don't know, creative pursuits.
Yeah, exactly.
Like expressing their individuality through their work or something.
You got it. And the material from Personality NFT, it actually gives some good examples of how those wings can show up.
Right.
So someone like Oprah, with all her warmth and generosity, she might be considered a type 3 with a 2 wing.
Mm-hmm.
Whereas Michelle Obama, with her focus on personal growth and, using her platform for causes she believes in, she might be more of a type 3 with a 4 wing.
Okay, yeah, that makes sense. It's amazing how even within the same core type, there could be so much variation, right?
Yeah, absolutely.
Like we're just scratching the surface here, but it already feels like we're going pretty deep.
Oh, we're just getting started. Now, are you ready to go even deeper? We've got subtypes to explore.
Okay. I'm intrigued. Bring it on.
So subtypes, they're also called instinctual variants. They add, a whole other layer of complexity to the Enneagram.
So we're talking like layers upon layers here.
Exactly. They help us understand a person's core motivations even better, like how they prioritize their energy,
Okay, so how do these subtypes play out for the achiever? What are the different variations?
So we've got 3 main subtypes. We have self-preservation, social, and one-to-one.
Okay.
The self-preservation subtype, it's pretty straightforward. They're all about security, creating a stable foundation for themselves and, for their loved ones.
So they might prioritize things like financial success or building a comfortable home, right?
Exactly. They value that sense of stability.
Makes sense.
Yeah.
What about the social subtype?
Now, the social subtype, they're very aware of their social standing. They want to be seen as successful. They want to be admired by their peers, by their community.
Yes, they might be drawn to leadership roles, prestigious careers, maybe even awards and recognition.
Exactly. They thrive on that social validation.
And what about that last one, the one-to-one subtype?
Now, the one-to-one subtype, they're all about intense, intimate connections. They really want to connect on a deep level. They seek validation and fulfillment through their relationships.
Oh, interesting.
So they might pour that achiever energy into their romantic partnership or their close friendships.
Wow. I'm seeing how this one core type can manifest in so many different ways.
It really is fascinating.
And we've got wings and subtypes. What else is there?
Well, there's actually one more layer we need to consider to really get the full picture of the achiever. We need to talk about levels of health.
Okay. Levels of health. What do you mean by that?
So think of it like this. Each Enneagram type, they have a spectrum of how they express themselves, from healthy to average to unhealthy.
Okay, so it's like a sliding scale.
Yeah, exactly. And this applies to type 3s as well.
So like a healthy type 3 might use their ambition to create positive change, while an unhealthy type 3 might be driven by a relentless need for validation, even if it means hurting others.
Exactly.
So understanding those levels of health, it's crucial for them to, recognize their own patterns and work towards becoming their best selves.
You got it. Self-awareness is key. It really is, yeah. And speaking of understanding, I think it's important to touch on something crucial for anyone exploring the Enneagram.
Okay, what's that?
Well, it's the possibility of misidentifying your type.
Right. It's easy to get caught up in those surface-level descriptions, read a quick blurb and think, oh, yeah, that's so me.
Totally, but there's so much more to it than that.
There's gotta be.
Right, and type 3s especially, they can be mistaken for other types that, share some similar traits.
Okay, so like who might they be confused with?
Well, they might see themselves in, say, the driven, ambitious nature of a type 1, the reformer, or even the people-pleasing tendencies of a type 2, the helper.
Okay, so it's not just about recognizing those individual traits, but it's about understanding the deeper motivations behind them.
Exactly. Like, for example, type 1s, they're driven by a strong sense of right and wrong.
Okay.
But type 3s, they're more focused on achieving success, gaining recognition.
So different driving forces.
Right. And type 2s, they really want to feel loved and needed. But type 3s, they seek that validation, that admiration for their accomplishments.
Oh, it's subtle, but it's important.
Absolutely. It reminds me of those optical illusions.
Oh, yeah.
Where you see one thing at first glance, but then suddenly your perception shifts and you see something totally different.
Oh, I love that analogy. It really highlights how important it is to dig a little deeper.
Yeah.
To go beyond those first impressions.
Exactly.
Okay, so now that we've got that sorted out, let's switch gears a bit and talk about relationships.
Okay, yeah.
How do those achiever tendencies, how do they play out in the realms of love, family, and friendships?
Well, as you might imagine, their core desires and fears, they definitely color how they approach those relationships.
Okay, so give me an example.
Okay, so let's take romantic relationships, for example. Type 3s, they might struggle with vulnerability.
Oh, that makes sense.
Right. It can feel really risky for them to open up, to reveal their true selves.
It's like they're afraid of being rejected or seen as a failure, maybe.
Exactly. So they might put up walls, they might avoid getting too deep too quickly.
Right. They got to keep that image up.
Yeah. And they might also show love through, actions rather than words.
Like grand gestures.
Yeah. Practical support, maybe even helping their partner achieve their own goals.
Okay, so their love language is like acts of service, achievements.
Yeah, makes sense, right?
Totally. Given their drive to excel. Now, what about family dynamics? How does the achiever personality show up there?
Well, type 3s, they often feel a strong sense of responsibility to, create that successful, that positive image for their family.
It's like they're extending that desire for recognition to their whole family unit.
Yeah, exactly. And this can sometimes lead to, pressure, especially when it comes to their kids.
Oh, I bet. I can see them pushing their children to excel in, school, sports, all of that.
Yeah, it's that potential for them to project their own, goals and ambitions onto their kids.
Right. So it's great to encourage your kids, but also important to remember they have their own path.
Absolutely.
Okay. Now let's talk about friendships. Are type threes the kind of friends who are always, on, even in casual settings?
Yeah, they can be. Remember, they're driven to achieve. They like to make a good impression. So they might approach social situations with a certain level of intentionality.
It's like they're always networking, even subconsciously.
Not necessarily in a calculated way.
Okay.
It's more that they thrive in environments where they can connect with, like-minded individuals, share ideas, maybe even expand their opportunities.
They're always on the lookout.
Yeah, but it's important for them to find that balance.
Right.
To make sure they're not turning every social gathering into, like, a work event.
So finding that sweet spot between ambition and genuine connection.
Exactly.
Okay. So I'm curious about how type threes approach things like motivation and control.
Yeah.
What strategies do they use to actually achieve their goals and, stay on track?
Well, for starters, they're already pretty self-motivated individuals.
Right.
But they can enhance that drive even further by setting, specific, achievable goals.
So it's about breaking those big aspirations down into smaller, more manageable steps.
Yeah, like creating a roadmap to success.
I like that. And I imagine they thrive on positive reinforcement, too. Really?
No, absolutely. Receiving praise and recognition from, people they admire, it really fuels their fire.
Like a little validation boost.
Yeah. Whether it's from a mentor, a colleague, a loved one, those external validations, they really boost their confidence and motivate them to keep going.
But it's important to remember that external praise shouldn't be their only source of motivation, right?
Exactly.
Yeah.
They also need to cultivate that sense of intrinsic motivation.
Finding that internal drive.
Right. Finding fulfillment in the process itself, not just the end result.
Okay. And what about control? I have a feeling type threes are pretty good at, keeping things in check.
You're absolutely right. They value discipline, structure, planning.
Uh-huh.
They set high standards for themselves.
Yeah.
And they're really good at, sticking to their schedules.
Like they have that inner organizer, keeping everything running smoothly.
Right. But of course, everyone faces setbacks. Everyone faces challenges. And for type threes, that pressure to maintain that image of perfection, it can lead to, anxiety and frustration when things go off the rails.
So it's important for them to develop healthy coping mechanisms for those moments when things get a little messy.
Absolutely. Learning to manage those emotions, to embrace flexibility, adapt to those unexpected changes.
Right.
It's crucial for their well-being. They need to remember that, it's okay to not be perfect all the time.
Now, before we move on, I'm just curious, are there any famous examples of type threes?
Oh, tons.
Yeah.
Think about people like Beyonce, for example.
Oh, okay.
With that relentless drive, those captivating performances, or Dwayne "The Rock" Johnson.
Oh, yeah. He's everywhere.
Right. Conquering the wrestling ring, Hollywood, everything in between.
It's inspiring to see them, channel that ambition and drive into such incredible success.
It really is. And it's important to remember, everyone has their own unique journey. The Enneagram is just a tool.
Right.
It helps us understand ourselves and others better.
Well said. Well, before we jump into the final part of our deep dive, I think it's a good time to just take a moment and reflect.
Yeah.
I mean, we've uncovered so much already about the achiever personality.
We have.
We've talked about their core desires and fears, explored those key characteristics, and even, delved into those nuances of wings and subtypes, levels of health.
It's a lot to process.
It is, but there's still more to uncover.
Right.
So we'll be back after a quick moment to wrap things up. Okay, so we've covered a ton of ground already on the achiever personality. But how can someone actually use this knowledge to grow, to live a more fulfilling life?
Well, that's the million-dollar question, right? It all starts with self-awareness.
Okay.
Being able to recognize those core desires, those fears, the motivations, all the things we've been talking about.
So it's like becoming aware of those those scripts that might be driving their behavior.
Exactly. Once they have that awareness, they can start to challenge those patterns and make more conscious choices that are more aligned with their true values,
So it's not about changing who they are at their core.
Right.
It's more about becoming more intentional, more authentic in how they live their lives.
Yeah, I like that.
So imagine you're a type 3. You're constantly pushing yourself to achieve more and more, but then, you're starting to feel burnt out, disconnected from those things that actually matter to you. With self-awareness, you can recognize that, well, that relentless drive, it might be coming from a place of fear.
Right.
Maybe a fear of failure or a need to prove your worth.
Absolutely.
So once you've kind of identified that pattern, what's the next step?
Well, then you can start to explore healthier ways to meet those needs.
Okay.
Right. So maybe it's about setting boundaries at work, prioritizing time for self-care,
Right.
or even learning to value your intrinsic worth, regardless of what you achieve externally.
So it's about shifting that focus from external validation to like internal fulfillment.
Exactly.
Yeah. It's about finding that balance between striving for success and actually nurturing your well-being.
Yeah.
Now, we talked earlier about those misidentifications.
Yeah.
Are there any like specific tips for type 3s who are trying to figure out, or if maybe they relate more to another type?
It's important to remember that the Enneagram, it's a complex system,
Right.
and there's a lot of overlap between the types.
Oh, that's
So
fine.
like type 3s with their drive for success, they might see themselves in a type 8, the challenger, who is also, very assertive, ambitious.
So how can someone really tell the difference there?
Well, it really comes down to those core motivations.
Oh.
Like we were saying, while type 8s are driven by a need for control, autonomy, type 3s are more focused on, that achieving success, gaining that recognition. It's a subtle but important distinction.
So it's about really paying attention to what's driving you at the deepest level.
Exactly.
Okay, yeah, that makes sense.
And, if you're still unsure, there's so many resources out there to help you explore the Enneagram more deeply.
Right. Now there's this concept that I've heard about. It's called the integration and disintegration paths.
Oh, yeah.
Can you break those down for us?
Sure. So basically, each Enneagram type has what's called a path of integration. And it's kind of like a direction of growth and development.
Okay.
For type 3s, that integration path, it leads them toward the qualities of type 6, the loyalist.
Interesting.
Yeah.
So they're moving from a focus on personal achievement to more of a sense of loyalty, commitment, inner security.
Exactly. They might start to prioritize deeper, more meaningful connections over those more superficial ones. They might become more aware of their inner thoughts, their feelings.
Yeah.
And they might even find ways to contribute to something, greater than themselves.
So it sounds like a really transformative journey.
It can be. Yeah.
And what about the disintegration path? What is that all about?
So the disintegration path, it's kind of the opposite. It's
Okay.
more like a direction of stress, unhealthy behavior.
Okay.
And for type 3s, this path, it leads them toward the traits of type 9, the peacemaker.
Oh, okay. So instead of being, driven, ambitious, they might become more withdrawn.
Yeah, they might become complacent, maybe even, lose interest in their own goals. They might start procrastinating, avoiding conflict, just feeling generally disconnected from their sense of purpose.
It sounds like it's really important for type 3s to be aware of these paths.
Yeah,
To make those conscious choices, to stay on that path of growth and integration.
absolutely.
Yeah. It's about recognizing those early warning signs. Taking steps to nurture their well-being and stay connected to their authentic selves.
I agree.
Well, I think we've reached the end of our deep dive into the world of the Enneagram Type 3, the achiever.
It's been a journey.
It has. And I hope our listeners are walking away with a better understanding of themselves and those amazing Type 3s in their lives.
Me too.
And, if you're curious to learn more, to keep exploring, there's some amazing resources out there from Personality NFT.
Oh, yeah, they've got great stuff.
So keep learning and keep diving deep into this fascinating world of personality.